Welcome to my first ever guitar modification video. This video is designed specifically for guys who want to put a Roland GK-Kit GT3 divided pickup in their guitar. I'm making this video for the guys at theguitarforums.com, so go there and check it out if you're not a member already. Basically, this is what you get for 230 bucks US roughly. A little white box full of parts. I've got my brand new stock Ibanez RG5EX1 guitar. I've already taken the strings off, the lock nuts. I've removed some of the hardware down below here just to get started. I'll show you what comes in the box. We get the control board, which is fairly big. It's going to take up a lot of space in the control cavity, so I may have to make some changes there. It's got a plastic cover on it, which is pretty good because it protects the circuits from shorting out. We've got the 13-pin output jack, and it's pretty big. It's going to take up a lot of real estate in this guitar, so I'm going to have to do a lot of chopping. And there's a cover for it that's going to go on the outside, as you can probably imagine. It comes with a light, so you can see if your GK's on or off or what's going on with it. A couple of buttons. These are switch 1 and switch 2 on the GK. Of course, the pickup, and it's got a connector at the bottom which you're going to have to fit through a fairly good sized hole in the pickup cavity. A 500K, or I think it's a 500K, yeah. No, it's a 50K. 50K pot for the volume, and a three-way selector switch, so you can switch between the GK pickup, your magnetic stock pickup, and a combination of the two. I think that's about it. So what I've done so far is taken the strings off. I've taken the pickup ring off because on this guitar it's a metal ring, and there is not enough space between the Ibanez licensed Floyd Rose bridge and this pickup to install this. So this is going to have to come off. What I'm going to probably do, at least try to do, is install this plastic black one that I picked up for a couple of bucks. It looks pretty cool on the guitar, and I think I can cut it to fit the pickup in place. So off with the bridge. I've got to remove some of these volume controls. I'm thinking I might leave one of these and probably this volume, and take this tone pot off and replace the tone, because I don't want to really drill too many holes in this guitar, just because it's just going to fill it up. It's going to be a lot of clutter. Not so much that I care about the guitar, but most importantly, I got to make sure that these controls are in spots that, you know, I'm going to want to have them in when I'm playing. I don't want to be setting buttons off and accidentally, and at the same time I don't want to be hunting for buttons and switches and stuff. So I got a lot of work ahead of me. I'll show you the back of this guitar. The control cavity is pretty much jammed full as it is already, so I have no idea what I'm going to do. Let me see if I can show you what... There's the GK. So it's got to go in there somewhere, probably be jammed. Tools. So far I've collected a few here that I think I'm going to need. I grabbed this 10-piece really long drill bit set from Princess Auto for about $9, and that's going to help me drill some extra holes that I'm going to need. I've got some measuring gauges for string heights and such. I believe I got these from Stuart Mac. The jeweler's drill bit. This is a little manual hand drill that's going to allow me to do precise drilling so that I don't screw things up using a cordless drill or an electric drill. A few other little tools, and that's about it. Anyways, I'm going to get started. Most importantly, a few of these Bud Lime lights might help me get through this. So before you decide to rip all this wiring out, I suggest you take a picture of what's going on in there. So I realized here as I went along, I pretty much had to gut this guitar because I got a lot of holes and stuff to drill, and I just couldn't move with all the wires. So everything's out of it except for the ground. Okay, now I gotta make the hole from the pickup cavity to the control cavity bigger to fit these extra GK wires. So I've got my trusty long bit here. I'm going to hand thread it in just slowly so I don't do any damage. Carefully. Now you can see that, but I've managed to thread it through the back of the guitar without touching anything, as the angle would be. Okay, and just manually do this by hand, using each size. I started here with a 5/16, and now I've moved to a 3/8, and I've basically turned it by hand. As you can see it coming through there. There's the front of it, just to make the hole bigger, and I didn't want to screw things up with an electric drill. I have to shake out the sawdust. That should give us enough room, substantially enough room, to thread all the new wires through. So now I've gone and placed the bridge back in temporarily so I can figure out my string alignments with the new pickup, because I'm going to have to probably route out a little spot here for the wire. Okay, so I've marked exactly where I want to route out. I'm going to try and show this to you. It's right in this little spot here. I'm looking at the camera backwards, so it's right here. And I tried to keep the markings within the old original pickup ring in case I ever took it off for whatever reason. Probably never will. I mean, once you go GK, you never go back, right? And I took out the bridge peg there because I definitely don't want to hit that with my router. So I've just routed out the small corner so I can get that GK wire in there. I used a light clamp on the guitar so it wouldn't move with this rag, so I wouldn't mark it. And I masked it with painter's tape and some paper, just so I wouldn't cause any blemishes in the existing finish. And it looks good. So there's my little notch there for the GK wire, because it's going to stick out. Let's see how good it was. It's perfect. So it's flush to the guitar. Nice little cavity there. So I carefully marked where I wanted to route the cavity for the new output jack, and I put 2 towels down on my bench and clamped the guitar body down with an old piece of hardwood, as you can see. And it's snug, but it's not tight, and it hasn't hurt the finish or anything. I'll let you see how deep that is. I believe it's got to be 32 millimeters deep. So another thing I did is I used a hacksaw blade, and I notched right up in here and up in this spot in order to accommodate for this jack. Now it's got a couple of, as you can see on the top where that metal bar is, it sticks out a little bit, and I wanted this thing to be really well supported in the guitar for pulling the jack in and out, or the guitar cable in and out of the jack. And what that did for me is it allowed it to be really, really strong. So it basically sits in the wood, and that metal piece that's in there is the only thing that's being stressed, because I don't want any stress on this or this. Okay, so now I need to drill a hole from the output jack cavity into the control cavity. I'm going to start with a small bit, and it's going to have to probably line up somewhere along there to get me in there. Now we don't have a whole lot of length in the wires, probably say that much. Once you straighten it out, you get about an inch out of it. I've been struggling with the limited length in wires here from the output jack. So what I've decided to do, and hopefully this is for the better, is I want to bring the control panel, the PCB board, a little bit closer, and at the same time I want to give it some support. So I decided within this cavity here, I don't know if you can see, I've marked with a pencil additional routing spot. So this way I can install the board closer, number one, and number two, provide it with a shelf to sit on inside there. In order to route out the spot for the PCB board, I'm going to take this piece of plexiglass, Home Depot issued, and I'm going to cut out a template so that I can tape it to the guitar, and I don't go anywhere I don't want to go, because this is going to be a little bit more delicate. So I took a pencil and I outlined the PCB board. Here, you can see it with a pencil, but then I went over it with a Sharpie just so it'll fit. I'm going to cut that out and use that as my template. Trying to keep the sawdust off my camera, so just to give you an idea where we're at here, I've put the template down and I used double-sided sticky tape to hold it in place, and I basically routed out probably a centimeter. I'm going to go down another half a centimeter, I think. We'll be getting close though to the pot, the back of the pot, so I got to measure that first before we go any further. Alright, so we're done, the cavity part, and the good news is this board fits in pretty snug, and there's enough clearance for the wires and everything. It's just sitting on a nice little shelf and it doesn't move. It's like friction fit. It's great. Hopefully it's not too hopefully it's not too tight. It just seems snug enough that it won't affect the PCB components at all. So I just finished drilling the hole for the wiring that's going to go from the output jack into the control cavity, and you'll see the hole just came out right level with where the PCB board's going to sit. I ended up going right to 3/8. I started with like 1/16. You'll see there's 5 bits here, and I've got the 6th one there, and you should be able to see the hole there. So I didn't damage anything, which is good, and I got lots of room, I think, for those 2 wires because they're pretty hefty. So now I want to make room for the GK volume control, which is actually going to replace where my magnetic volume control was. So I'm going to move one down, but I want to place it in the center of the 2 existing controls. So I've just measured for that, and that's it. So I put some tape down so I wouldn't chip the finish at the top, and I started with the smallest bit that I could find. I think it was 1/16, and moved all the way up to 5/16, which is about 7.8 or 8 millimeters roughly. I'm pretty limited to the placement of my switches, so my switch 1 and switch 2 buttons. So I've decided to stick them right here. I kind of played around with it for a bit to see what it'd feel like, and it seems to be the most viable spot. Right now the holes are at the 1/2 inch mark, and I've been going up. I had tape on there, I just peeled it off. I'm going to put a new piece, but I've been going up in 64th and 32nd increments. So today's day 3, and the reason it's day 3 is I went looking for a 15mm wood drill bit around town, and of course nobody has them.